The story of today's combat-ready defense force begins with the individual. He's Johnny Smith or Jim Brown, the fellow you watched grow up across the street, up the block, or in your own home. Clothes may make the man, but it takes more than a uniform to make a recruit into a soldier. Well-conditioned bodies, another fundamental. Now he is ready to learn how to handle some of the soldier's basic implements. And learn to deal with the kind of realities he must face when it counts. The needs of his spirit are nourished, his moral responsibilities defined, the traditions and disciplines of the Army instilled. Now a soldier, he must become a specialist, from mortars to missiles to paratrooper. In addition to being a soldier specialist, he is also a member of a unit. The member, he finds, of a great many units. The smallest is a squad. Squad men are taught to respond to varying combat situations through field training exercises. Also, men learn about combat in classes. And through solving sand table problems. Soldier specialist, member of a squad, platoon, company, battalion, division. The demands on the individual grow with the scale of the operation, and there comes a time when solving the small unit field problem is not enough preparation for meeting the harsh complexities of battle today. The Army has found that the best preparation for combat, particularly where large units such as battle groups, divisions, armies are involved, is the mammoth field exercise and maneuver. These intricate training tests, simulating actuality, are a practical answer to the situation in a world technically at peace, but constantly on edge. Such maneuvers are something new in United States military history, and they are one manifestation of a new sense of responsibility on the part of the American people. Training actually began in the American Army at Valley Forge in 1778. German Baron von Steuben introduced drill, discipline, close working among officers, non-coms and men. But no sooner were the British expelled than Congress reduced the Army to 55 men, characterizing the flood or famine military policy that carried into the 20th century. For a people occupied with the pursuit of happiness, the Atlantic Ocean was considered a sufficient buffer against nations with other pursuits. But suddenly the United States was a combatant. With the draft, we got them in. We put up the money. And fortunately, we had enough time to convert men and money into a fighting force. Armistice, peacetime, the time for celebrations and parades, and disbanding. But this time, the Defense Act of 1920 provided for the nucleus of a regular army, 280,000 men strong. Wilson went to Versailles with his 14 points to ensure peace. He left that continent with the League of Nations to settle future disputes. Hitler told his people there was another way. He offered guns instead of butter. The proposition was accepted. And the Wehrmacht sliced like a blade through a continent of butter. With Panzers and Stukas, Hitler taught us blitzkrieg. We began to train with stovepipes. And trucks that stood for tanks. We had neither the weapons, the equipment, nor the men to train a fighting force. By the 30s, the Army's strength had dwindled to half that prescribed by Congress in 1920. With enactment of the first peacetime draft in October of 1940, the flow of manpower began. By the following year, large-scale maneuvers were possible. Valuable lessons could be learned in handling masses of men, in discovering what mistakes to avoid. But the full value of training was denied by the still prevailing shortage of equipment. Perhaps the biggest lesson we learned was how long it takes for the arsenal of democracy to retool, how long it takes for a citizen to become soldier. Peacetime ran out one Sunday morning. But the United States still had the oceans on its flanks. In the 1940s, the oceans could be translated into time. Time to train pilots, mechanics, tankmen, and paratroopers. Time to teach assault troops how to secure a beachhead in history. Well-trained, well-equipped, well-prepared American troops performed notably in the battle theaters. They won. World War II taught that modern war must be fought everywhere and anywhere, in the jungle, in the desert, in winter or Arctic snow. The post-war truculence and appetite of communism taught that we must always be ready for instant, fully committed action. These necessities have fathered the modern field training maneuver. At Fort Riley, Kansas, exists one of the distinguishing features of the modern maneuver. Here in the heart of the United States is the headquarters of a so-called aggressor force, complete with table of organization to the minutest detail, ready to dispatch advisory personnel to all training and testing exercises. The specially trained aggressor troops with alien uniforms, ways, and tactics give Army units a feeling of opposing an actual enemy. Dummy weapons are used to heighten the battlefield realism. As in combat, the tested soldier is made to feel he is acting against a real opponent with all the attendant pressures, confusion, and discomfort of combat. A second major characteristic of the modern maneuver is maximum control. Highly trained umpires see to it by strict supervision that the soldier and his unit derive maximum benefit from the exercise. Contrary to the journalistic cliche, these exercises are not war games, not a contest between two sides left on their own to slug it out. It is the umpire's job to see that the participants obey the requisites of an actual situation. The modern field maneuver is the most complex, thoroughly planned operation in peacetime history. As in Operation Sagebrush, the Army Command decides fully 3 years in advance what goals it wants attained, training certain units, testing commanders, weapons, or strategies. An exercise director studies aerial photos and maps, then visits the area. If suitable, the Army must see that it is available. Farms must be rented, fields leased. Owners assure that they will be compensated for any damage. Then a scenario is written plotting the course of the operation. The scenario is buttressed by supporting plans. The outline plan provides how troops will be brought from all parts of the country. The aggressor force reads the script beforehand. The intelligence plan is a detailed outline of the aggressor force and its action. The control plan elaborates the role of the umpires. Operation Sagebrush, with 140,000 Army and Air Force personnel, was the largest maneuver since World War II. It kicked off in the autumn of 1955, with aggressor airborne troops penetrating deep into south-central United States. It was to be a significant test of weapons, concepts, and men. The first task of the defenders was to contain the initial thrust of the aggressor force. Then, in the second phase, reinforced defending units began to counterattack. umpire saw to it that the laws of logistics were observed, that the consequences of maneuver and firepower were realized. The superiority of the defenders eventually prevailed, as it should have. From sagebrush, the Army learned that it needed better reconnaissance, communications, and mobility to cope with growing firepower. In Operation Portrex, the problem was that a hypothetical enemy had captured a small Puerto Rican island to jump off for the U.S. mainland. The job of the defenders, catch them on the first bounce. It was a formidable test of the coordination of Army, Navy, and Air Force. Soldiers, sailors, and airmen took part in this amphibious operation, the first maneuver of such magnitude since World War II. The time was 1950, 3 months before the Communists crossed the 38th parallel into South Korea. A man-sized job in Operation Arctic Night was simply getting there. Moving a battalion of the 82nd Airborne, one of the Strategic Army Corps units from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, 3,500 miles to Thule, Greenland. The paratroopers had had considerable preparation before they left, practicing with skis on straw. But there's nothing like the real thing, particularly at 30 below. This was the first mass para-jump in the Arctic just a few years ago, a feat that has been repeated since. It was an extreme demonstration of the flexibility and mobility of the Army's Strategic Reserve. On the other hand, the Army conducts jungle warfare maneuvers in Panama. These maneuvers have been held in conjunction with good neighbors in Latin America, symbolizing the cooperation and joint responsibilities of the free world. Coordination has been carried to the nth degree in NATO. These forward line defense forces are constantly sharpened in recurring maneuvers from Turkey to Norway, manifesting the unity of the 14 nations. SEATO is the Southeast Asian counterpart of the Atlantic Alliance. It too keeps sharp with field exercises. Another form of cooperation has been between armed forces and civilian populations. Under a deliberate policy since World War II, the supervisors of maneuvers have promoted a program of goodwill and education. In Danville, Virginia, a whole community participated in Operation Dragonhead. First, Danville was conquered by aggressor troops, and the town's leaders seized. Then defending Army units got the satisfaction and experience of liberating Danville. Maneuvers also have familiarized troops with new weapons. Nuclear weapons meant that troops had to know how to withstand gigantic concussion and how to deal with radiation. Commanders had to learn how to maneuver dispersed forces. The problems were studied firsthand at Yucca Flats, Nevada. Nuclear explosion, troop dispersal, assault, all finally integrated into a controllable operation. Big blast weapons have necessitated radical revision of combat communications. One blow cannot knock out the new Army Area Communications System. This system required progressive testing through a whole series of maneuvers. Another evolving concept is that of the Aerial Task Force, a completely air-mounted unit for reconnaissance and attack. Allied observers got a chance to see all these developments in weapons, methods, and concepts fused in the recent Operation Winter Shield in West Germany. There was extensive use of helicopters, supplying some of the mobility lacking in Operation Sagebrush. Winter Shield was designed to train troops under simulated combat conditions in winter weather. It showed, said one impartial observer, that the 7th Army is tough and well-trained, and that the Army is certainly not preparing to fight World War II over again. Maneuvers, then, are a military insurance policy. Amphibious training of troops enabled General MacArthur to reverse the course of war at Incheon. Airborne training paid off with paradrops in Korea. The concept of mobility was vividly realized when a division stationed in Germany suddenly appeared in Lebanon to shore up a nation against inimical forces. And troop carrier planes helped United Nations units to avert chaos in the Congo. With the help of maneuvers, our soldiers are better able to fight anywhere, in any weather, under any conditions, and survive. A showcase example of the finely trained, versatile force is STRAC, the Army's Strategic Reserve, ready to go anywhere in the world and start in 15 minutes. For all the trouble spots since Korea tell us that a battalion in time is worth 9. They tell us that, unlike World Wars I and II, we must be ready now. And to be ready now, we need a reservoir of fit, able-bodied men, specialists. We need Minutemen as much today as we did at Lexington and Concord in 1776. But today, Minutemen are made by constant training, the insurance policy that saves lives and can save nations.